Welcome back to the poker vlog. This is episode number 259, and for this one we're playing a high stakes session back at Bellagio during the WSOP. Hope you guys enjoy it, but before we get started, a couple of announcements to make. The first one is that I'm doing a hometown meetup game with Andrew Nemi at Grayton Casino in Northern California. That'll be August 3rd and August 4th. We're playing a cash game on the 3rd, and then we're doing a tournament on the 4th. I'll have more information in the description box below. And then we have the Fall Mayhem series coming up at the Lodge in Austin, Texas. So that's going to be awesome. There are tournament buy-ins of all different amounts. I'll have a link down below, and we're doing a meetup game to kick that off. So that meetup game is going to be a low stakes one, September 4th. If you're around or able to make it out to Austin, then come hang out, have some drinks with me, Andrew, and Doug. That'll be a lot of fun. All right, guys, I hope you enjoy this episode. There are some very interesting hands right away. It's been an unbelievable start to the summer. I got my first ever six-figure score while making it to my first ever major WPT final table that was highlighted in the last vlog. The Golden Knights won the Stanley Cup on home ice, and I made my first ever WSOP final table. It was an online bracelet event with over 2,400 entries. If you're interested in seeing all the wild hands that took place during that run, check out the Brad Owen Clips channel where I uploaded a video covering it. I'll have a link pinned at the top of the comment section if you'd like to watch it. It's been a fun several weeks after a rough start to the year for me, but all that's in the past. One thing I haven't been doing much of lately though is playing cash games. Now that MGM has allowed vloggers back, I'm excited to return to my old stomping grounds. As the sun is rising, I head to the Strip. There's a high stakes 10, 20, 40 game running. It should have some players who are still there from the night before, who probably aren't in the best frame of mind to be making decisions for thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars. It's not often that we're arriving early enough to see the sun light up the front side of the property quite like this. It's good to be back here. There's a seat open for me right as we walk into the poker room. The game looks good. I buy in for $10,000. This is still a lot of money for me, but there was a time not that long ago when I would have been extremely nervous to put this amount on the line. My goal has always been to get more and more comfortable playing higher stakes. Though I've taken plenty of licks along the way, I'm certainly more at ease now than I was 2 years ago taking shots in the high limit area. The session begins just after 6 a.m. We don't wait at all before getting involved. The very first hand I'm dealt would pick up ace king of diamonds in the hijack. I had to post 40. No one's going to believe that we have a monster immediately. I raised to 140. The small blind is included in that list of non-believers. He 3-bets to 520. It's summertime in Las Vegas and the heat is turning up. We may be all in right from the get-go. I 4-bet to 1,300. I don't get up early in the morning to show up to Bellagio to play games. Okay, I do, but you know what I mean, small blind. I'm ready to rumble. The opponent calls for about 800 more. We're heads up in position in a large 4-bet pot. The flop comes 8-6-4 with 2 diamonds. We've got the flush draw with 2 overs. The opponent checks. I'm keeping the pressure on with the C-bet. Since the opponent didn't 5-bet us, he probably has either an ace-king type of hand or a pocket pair below a king that we'll have 15 outs against twice. I'll get it all in on the flop if we need to. As I'm putting out a bet of 1,600, the opponent folds before our chips hit the felt. I guess I didn't realize how much I missed cash games. Within 5 minutes, we're up almost a buy-in for the 1,500 PLO No Limit Hold'em mixed event that I'm considering playing later in the afternoon. It's still the first orbit when we look down at ace-queen offsuit in the under-the-gun straddle. The big blind raises to 120. We're mostly supposed to be 3-betting. Instead, I call. Maybe we can connect with a board that the big blind wouldn't necessarily expect us to connect with. He'll make some bluff attempts. We're heads up in position once more. The flop comes 10-3 deuce rainbow. Not exactly what we were looking for. The big blind puts out a small c-bet of 100. We've under-repped our hand pre-flop. When that's the case, I'm not in a rush to find reasons to fold. I call. We've got 2 overs and a backdoor Broadway draw as well as a backdoor wheel draw. The turn is the king of hearts. It's a card that's generally going to connect better with the pre-flop aggressor's range, though we pick up a gutter. The big blind is going to continue repping a big hand. He bets 360. I'm not entirely convinced that he'll have a king or a 2-pair or better hand like he's representing, and if he doesn't, we should have the best hand. If not, we have a draw to the nuts. I call to keep our opponent honest. The river is the 8 of diamonds. We ultimately end up with just ace high. It's a little disappointing. All hope isn't lost though. The opponent checks. We don't want to bluff into a strong hand if the big blind is trapping us. We can beat pretty much everything the opponent might have bluffed with, so we don't need to bet. I check back. Our inkling was correct. The big blind is no honest Abe. He shows that he double barrel bluffed with ace 5 of clubs. He has a busted wheel draw. That doesn't beat our busted Broadway draw. Just like that, we're up almost $2,000. Our hourly rate in this game is off the charts. It's bomb pot time. We've got 8-6 offsuit middle position. 7 players put in $100 each pre-flop, and we go straight to a flop of 8-6-5 rainbow. We've got top 2 pair, but we're playing against 6 other completely random cards. Checks to me. It's possible that we could already be up against a set or a straight. These bomb pots can be tricky. I bet 240 for value and to narrow down the field. I expect to get called by anyone holding a 7. You can also get called by an overpair or a top pair type of hand. Under the gun calls, he's the only customer. We're heads up. The turn is the ace of hearts. I don't expect for it to have changed anything very often. The opponent checks. Since we didn't get raised on the flop, it's reasonable to assume that we had the best hand at that point. We should still have the best hand most of the time. I bet 400 to continue charging straight draws. Under the gun doesn't like seeing us fire a second bullet. He folds. We win the pot and are up about 2,400. I'm glad I decided to come out and play. As the old saying goes, the early bird makes all the money and tends to drive a Lambo. Close to an hour later, we've got ace-queen offsuit in the big blind. Under the gun +1 raises to 100. The game almost broke. Then a new player sat down to keep it going. That new player 3-bets to 200 from under the gun +2, his very first hand. We're probably best. We have removal to strong hands like aces, queens, and ace-king. Plus the 3-bet we're facing isn't a real sizing. I put in the cold 4-bet to 700. This doesn't deter the initial pre-flop raiser. He calls for 600 more. This doesn't get the 3-better out either. He takes the play out of my book and turns up the aggression level to 11. The first time he's dealt cards at our table with a 5-bet to 2,800. I can't believe how rude this guy is. As soon as he arrives, he's got no manners. I'm not interested in playing for stacks when I don't know what card I really want to hit, if I even have any live outs. I fold. Under the gun +1 folds as well. Under the gun +2 wins it and says that he had pocket kings. We get a chance for revenge shortly after when we pick up 6-5 suited after double straddling to 80. Mr. 5-bet kings raises to 280 from the button. Our hand has lots of playability, and more importantly, we've got to get some chips back from our opponent. I call for 200 more. We're heads up out of position. The flop comes queen 10-3 all clubs. We flop a flush. I check to the pre-flop aggressor. He's being difficult and doesn't take the bait. He checks back. The turn is the ace of spades. I'm hoping that he connected with it, but I can't rely on him betting after he checked back the previous street. I take the initiative with a bet of 400. This is enticing for the opponent. He calls. He probably has at least top pair. If a blank comes, we're going to go with a large sizing. The river is the 5 of spades. We make a pair just in case our flush isn't good enough on its own. I'm feeling good. There's a small chance that the button got tricky and checked back the flop with the ace-high flush, but it's not very likely. We've essentially got the nuts the way that this has been played. I go with over a pot-sized bet of 1,500. I'm saying I've got at least 2 pair, or I've got nothing. The opponent often plays in way bigger games than the one that we're currently in. 1,500 doesn't mean much to him. He makes the call. We deliver the news that we flopped it and got a terrific run out. Our hand is the winner. We take down a pot of several $1,000s. We're running good and getting paid. It's a great combo for success. Once again, it's bomb pot time. We've got 10-7 of hearts in the cutoff. 7 players put in 100 pre-flop. The flop comes king 6-4 with 2 hearts. We've got a flush draw with a backdoor straight draw. Our recent nemesis has added on for 50,000 more. He's got about 60,000 in front of him. He bets 200 into the table. I have to give him credit for a strong hand. I just call. I'm the only one. We're heads up in position. The turn is the 8 of clubs, giving us a double gutter to go along with our heart draw. The big blind slows down and checks. I doubt he'd do that with a 2-pair better type of hand. We're going to take the opportunity to try and win this right now with a backup plan of drilling the nuts in case our semi-bluff isn't successful. I bet 460. Sometimes I'll just check back in order to make sure that we're able to realize our equity. In this instance, we're strong enough to be able to withstand a check raise though. The big blind isn't ready to relinquish his hand. He calls. He's making things tougher by sticking around. Our primary plan didn't work. That means I guess we'll just have to rely on plan B. The river is the 9 of spades. We backdoor our way into the absolute stones. There isn't much sweeter than getting there an unexpected way in a high stakes cash game against an opponent who may have revenge mode turned on. He checks. This type of situation is rare. We want to make sure that we're able to make the maximum when we're fortunate enough to go runner for the nuts. The opponent has already showed that he's willing to pay off larger river bets. We go for it again. This time, I make it 2200. The opponent should call if he has any two pair or better hand. He may get curious and call if he has top pair as well. It's possible. He learned his lesson after we showed him the flush though.
5-7? Okay, give you.
Not quite. It's a little bit better.
The nuts
We don't get paid off, but we still win a nice pot. We're up over 4,000 in about 2.5 hours of playing. Poker is an easy way to make an easy living. Well, at least when you've got God mode activated. We get pocket aces in the under the gun straddle. We've been moved to a new table. We're no longer in the high stakes area. We're in the main room, but it looks like our good fortune remains unchanged. My friend has a final table that starts at 10 a.m., which I'm looking forward to sweating, so I'm planning on leaving soon. Winning one more nice pot before I head out would be a great way to cap off the session. Our nemesis that we battled with in the last several hands is in the hijack. He raises to 120. He may not like me much at the moment. I like him a lot though. He just keeps teeing it up for us. I 3-bet to 400. The opponent's stack is halfway to the 6-figure mark, and I don't mean that he has a 3-figure stack. He has a giant stack. He makes the call. We're heads up, out of position. The flop comes King 10-7 rainbow. It's fairly innocuous, not a whole lot to be concerned about. I down bet to 300. There's no quick decision from the opponent. He appears to have at least a piece of the flop. He gathers chips, then ultimately calls. Could have a king, maybe he has queen jack or a smaller pair with some backdoor draws. The turn is the 8 of spades. Some unlikely straights get there, and there are 2 spades on the board now. I don't want this pot to get too big. I check for pot control purposes. If we get a check back, we'll know that we're in the lead and we can make a large bet on the river if it's a blank. It won't be quite that simple for us. The opponent bets 700. It feels like he just has a king, or maybe he's taking a stab at some sort of semi-bluff like we did previously with 10-7 of hearts on the turn. It's important to note that the ace of spades is unaccounted for, so we might be up against a flush draw or a combo draw of some sort. I call, which really caps our range for the most part. We'll rarely have 2 pair or better when we check call turn. The river is the 5 of hearts. It's pretty much a blank. I check again. The opponent is contemplating what to do and he's taking his time. Eventually, he puts out a gigantic bet of 4,000. There's a gross spot. I don't think the river changed anything, and the opponent only bet 700 on the turn with a lot of draws present. The spade draw missed, and so did the Broadway draw. Like I mentioned earlier, our hand is capped at 1 pair, so we pretty much got the best hand that we'll have. Given how we've played this, with just a small bet on the flop and a check call on the turn, our rockets are somewhat under-repped. Could the opponent have ace-king and think that he's got the best hand or that we're chopping? If we can beat his bluffs and potentially a value hand like that after playing a bit passively post-flop, we don't want to be too quick to fold. I'm not loving it, but I'm not letting it go.
7 hands. Nice hand, nice hand.
The opponent makes the maximum from me after flopping a monster. Just like that, minutes before I was planning on getting up, our profit gets completely wiped out and I'm now down 2,500. Poker's not an easy way to make a living after all. Stay in school, younger viewers. This one's painful. Looks like I'll be a little late to my buddy's final table. I've got some money to win back. I add on for another 10,000. I'm in for 20,000 total. I'm not too thrilled at the moment after losing a 5-figure pot. Value Town isn't exactly where I was hoping to get taken today, but I've got to try to play my best. Next we've got King 8 suited on the button and a double straddle. I raise to 200. The big blind is an aggressive player. He 3-bets to 940. It's standard for players, particularly in the small blind or big blind, to 3-bet a wide range over a button raise to deter players behind them from calling in the straddle, and in this case the double straddle. 3-betting gives them an opportunity to win the pot without seeing a flop, and builds a big pot when they're able to make strong hands. This may be surprising to some viewers, but King 8 suited could be the best hand. We'll be mixing in calls and folds with it. Against someone who 3-bets at a higher frequency, like in this instance, I'm more likely to stick around. I call, we're heads up, the flop comes ace-4 deuce with 2 clubs. Well, we just torched $940 with that call. If the opponent breathes on this, we're out. He could have 3-bet pre-flop with any suited ace and a number of good offsuit aces. I expect him to have at least top pair pretty often. The big blind goes for the check. Maybe he has a middle or high pocket pair and doesn't like seeing the ace out there. Maybe, he's got top set. I'm not falling for that trap. I don't even have a backdoor draw. I check back, not really wanting anything to do with the pot anymore. Okay, that statement might have been a bit premature. The turn is the 8 of diamonds, giving us middle pair. It's just enough of a piece to potentially cause us to lose piles of money as the opponent bets 1,000. It's the old delayed C bet. Now having removal to middle set, I consider raising to rep it. Well, there's not much of a reason to do that, especially when there's still a possibility that I'm up against pocket aces or ace king. I make the call, not knowing if I'm drawing dead or just slim. The river is the 6 of hearts, shouldn't have changed anything. The big blind goes into the tank for a long time. After almost a full minute, he checks. Maybe he has ace-5 suited or another hand like that, or maybe he has queens or jacks. Either way, we're probably not going to win this, but we have showdown value, so we don't necessarily need to turn our hand into a bluff. I check back. The opponent says that he has nothing. He's trying to avoid showing his cards while still getting the information out of me to see what I have. If this were a small stakes game against a recreational player, I'd be happy to show first. This guy is a European professional, and I'm not going to show him how I played the hand against him for no reason. Finally, he shows that he has 10-9 of spades. We had him beat the whole way. We win a $4,000 pot after getting a nice turn card. It's too bad spades didn't come, but we're only down $1,200 now, which is a very small amount for this game, particularly considering the double straddle has been on frequently. 15 minutes later, we've got ace-10 offsuit in the cutoff. I raise to 100. The button is another aggressive pro. He 3-bets to 300. The opponent is supposed to be 3-betting a fairly wide range with quite a few worse hands than ours, and he's been 3-betting a lot. I'm tired of his crap. The problem is that ace-10 offsuit doesn't play all that well from out of position, so we've got good removal, and ace-10 is too good to fold though. I get creative and 4-bet to 1200. I've only put in one other 4-bet today with the ace-queen offsuit earlier. This will often win the pot right now. It doesn't this time. The opponent calls pretty quickly. We're heads up out of position in a large pot. The flop comes 9-8-8 with 2 clubs. We don't connect all that well. At least we have 2 overs and some backdoor draws. I down bet to 800. Again, not much thought from the opponent. He cuts out chips and calls. The turn is the queen of clubs. It's an interesting one because we pick up the flush draw and the gut shot straight draw. I'm going to continue repping strong hands like flushes, overpairs, and queens full. I don't have to worry much about the opponent having jack 10 because we have a 10. I bet 2600. Ideally, this will end the hand right now. If not, maybe we can drill a club or a jack. If the river's a blank, we'll continue firing huge to rep monsters. There's just a little more thought from the opponent on this street. We don't get rid of him though. He calls again. I'm beginning to get concerned that he has a full house already. He could maybe have a hand like jacks or 10s with a club though, or maybe ace queen or king queen of diamonds. The river is another 8. I'm not happy about it for a variety of reasons. We missed all of our draws, and the strong ace-high flushes that we were pretending to have on the turn are nearly worthless. Still, I can continue representing hands like aces, kings, and queens. It's actually possible that the opponent can have all those in his range because he wouldn't necessarily 5-bet those hands pre-flop in position. I at least have removal to aces. I'm going for it. I make a huge bet of 8,000 to get folds from jacks, 10s, maybe ace queen, ace king offsuit with the king of clubs, king jack and king 10 of clubs, maybe even pocket kings, since that hand beats almost nothing at this point. The story isn't quite convincing enough. The opponent makes the hero call. We show him that we've got air. He turns over queen jack of spades for the win. It's a hand I wouldn't expect him to have played that way, but it works out as well as possible for him. He called a huge pre-flop 4-bet pretty light, called a flop bet light, got the best turn card that he could have gotten in order for me to continue firing while he takes over the lead, then got an amazing river card. He blocks pocket queens, which is the main hand that I was representing, and we couldn't get him to fold. I lose a ton of money going for the Hail Mary. It's a devastating way to lose. I'm down 14,000 on the day. While trying to regroup, we pick up ace queen offsuit in the big blind just a few hands later. The cutoff raises to 100. With the straddler behind me and a chip stack that's much smaller than it was just moments ago, I 3-bet to 500. The cutoff smells blood in the water. He calls for 400 more with intentions of finishing me off. We're heads up out of position. The flop comes 6-6-3 rainbow. We don't connect. I won't have many 6s in my range, and it's likely that the opponent has a small to medium pocket pair that won't be folding to a C bet. I'll probably be ahead, or I'll have to double barrel bluff to win it. Given that I just torched $10,000 in a recent hand triple barrel bluffing, I don't think I'm going to get much credit for having strong hands right now. I check. The cutoff may only have 2 high cards as well, or maybe he doesn't want to inflate the pot with a pocket pair. He checks back. The turn is the king of diamonds. I could represent it, but again, my bluffs aren't going to work as often as normal, and the opponent will have some kings in his range. I check. The cutoff knows that this card will generally be a good one for me. He checks back. The river is the queen of clubs. We make a pair. It's interesting, especially after the cutoff checked the turn. Ace queen is very likely the best hand. There's no reason to believe that the opponent has a king or better. I make a large bet of 1,000. It's about the size of the pot. I chose this sizing partly to try and get calls out of a hand like queen jack or queen 10 suited, but mostly targeting a hand like 9s, 8s, or 7s. Those medium or even small pocket pairs are the most likely holdings that the opponent might have played this way to be able to call a bet, and a larger sizing could look like I'm steaming after an unsuccessful bluff attempt with ace 10, and now I'm just trying to win a pot by force. The opponent doesn't believe that I've got it. He snap calls. I gladly turn over what feels like the nuts. It's not. The opponent has king-queen offsuit. He went runner-runner to finish with top 2 pair. His check back on the turn allows him to win an extra $1,000. After getting an amazing start, I lose $20,000 from the high point of the session. There's some things I could have done differently to avoid disaster, but it's clearly not my day after all. It's time to rack up my remaining amount and watch my friend play the biggest day of his poker career to hopefully help take my mind off the worst loss I've ever had at Bellagio. Not a very good day today. I lost about $16,000. It was my worst losing session of all time in Las Vegas. And I was up 4,000 or 4,500 or something at the high point. Went on a 20K downswing. The game was about to break at one point when I was up. I was pretty happy about that. Or I was okay with it because I haven't really played too much cash lately. And then I was actually gonna leave at 11 a.m., which was about 15 minutes after, or 10 a.m., sorry, which is about 15 minutes after that ACES hand that got cracked. And then I was not super happy. And then tried the Hail Mary bluff. It didn't work out. I mean, just kind of nothing worked out today, and that's how it's been going since I made a couple of final tables, but that's how poker goes. So just gotta try to hang in there, play better, and shake it off. I make it to the WSOP to sweat my friend Will Butcher. He's made it down to the final 9 in a $500 WSOP event, which had over 4,000 entries. He's in the 1 seat there in the blue. I've known him for about 5 years. He was a moderator for Jason Somerville's streams a long time ago. Then he got a bigger role working for Run It Up. Now he works for the World Poker Tour. He's one of the nicest guys in the industry. His biggest cash before this one was only $1,300. Now he has a chance to win the first place prize of over $200,000. Watching him inspires me to fire in the PLO No Limit Hold'em mixed tournament that I mentioned earlier. Despite being exhausted, not knowing much about PLO, and likely not being able to play my best after nearly a $16,000 loss, I managed to make the money, and I bag a decent amount of chips for day 2. It's well after midnight, and I got up at about 4:30 in the morning, but I want to hang out with my buddy who made the final table. I head down the strip to meet Will. We grab a nightcap to celebrate his incredible 3rd place finish out of 4,303 players for $99,961. It's an amazing accomplishment. I'm tempted to give him an extra $39 so that he can have a 6-figure win, but he seems to be doing all right. The next day, I return to the WSOP to see if I can make another final table of my own. I run up a 110K stack that I started the day with to almost 500,000 at the high point. Then I run pocket kings into pocket aces during a round of no limit. The opponent flops top set. I pick up a flush draw on the turn that's unfortunately no good since the opponent has the ace of hearts, and I'm out of the event. There were 2,076 entries. I'm out in 102nd place for a $3,700 payout. It's not quite the finish that I wanted, but I at least get some money back that I lost in the cash game. that's it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I'd appreciate it if you hit the like and subscribe buttons. It really helps out the channel. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to let me know in the comment section. I'm happy to get back to you. This session obviously didn't go too well. The WSOP in general, it didn't really go all that well, which is kind of expected for the WSOP for me, to be honest. But I had that amazing run to start it out. I was really hopeful I was going to crush. Be sure to check out that video on the Brad Owen Clips channel. I'll have a link pinned at the top of the comment section because that's actually a really cool video. It's my first ever WSOP final table that I've ever made. And there are just so many interesting hands in it that I couldn't do like a normal proper vlog like I would on this channel. And so for that reason, I put this hour-plus long video on the second channel, and I'm gonna be doing more stuff on that second channel as well. I'll probably go through all my stats for the WSOP on that channel at some point and make a separate video of that. But anyway, really excited about the content that I'm gonna have for you guys going forward. We've got some meetup games coming up at Grayton, and that'll be August 3rd and August 4th. That's in Northern California. And then we have the Fall Mayhem series coming up at the Lodge in Austin, Texas. And we're doing a meetup game September 4th to kick that off. And that's gonna be really cool. We're probably gonna do some streams at the Lodge a few days before that meetup game as well. So that's a great time to come out to Austin if you've never been out there and check out the Card Club. Hope you guys are all doing well. Hope you're staying safe. Good luck at the tables, and I'll see you next time. Bradley wave.